Less than 2 years, y'all see where we at today? And that's because of Senator Warnock, his votes that he's been giving out. Less than 2 years, this is where we at. He's asking you to give him 6 more years. Can you put up with 6 more years of this?
This is not about right and left. This is about the difference between right and wrong. I believe in my soul that Georgia knows that Georgia is better than Herschel Walker.
Georgia Senate runoff coming up on Tuesday. We're going to talk about it on our roundtable, joined by Christie, Donna Brazil, Julie Pace, the AP's executive editor, and Washington Post congressional reporter Mariana Sotomayor. Welcome to you all. And Julie, let me begin with you. We all predict elections at our peril these days, but it does appear in these final couple of days that Raphael Warnock has the momentum in Georgia.
There's certainly a sense that this runoff race in Georgia is starting to edge toward the Democrats. Obviously, Georgia, a very close state right now, but I think a couple dynamics that have been moving in the Democrats' favor. One is the fact that this is not anymore the decisive election for control of the Senate that was taken care of in the November election. And so I think that's taken a little bit of the energy out of the sails of Republicans who were really hoping that they could energize their voters. The other thing is just looking at these early vote numbers. You don't want to overread it too much because obviously Republicans tend to vote in larger numbers on Election Day. But Democrats are hitting their markers, particularly in areas of Georgia where they have strong representation from black voters. And that's giving them a little more confidence going into Tuesday.
Democrats have gotten a lot of practice at this, Donna.
You know, Reverend Warnock is running like a quarterback who understands how to run that ball into the end zone. Herschel Walker disappeared for almost 4 days during the Thanksgiving holiday when people were focused and they were preparing to go out and vote early. So I do believe that Reverend Warnock will be able to score this time, win decisively, and why not? I mean, this really is about competence and character. And Reverend Warnock has shown that he's head and shoulder above Mr. Walker.
Governor Kemp trying to carry Herschel Walker over the goal line.
He would be the first human being who ever dragged Herschel Walker over the goal line. And look, Brian Kemp, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, right? Brian Kemp, people wondered whether he would go all in or not. He has with his staff. He's been out there personally campaigning for Walker. Now, it's different, as you know, George, than him being at the top of the ballot. And so some of that is transferable, but maybe not all of it. I think it's going to be very close. These Georgia elections have been very close. I think it will be close. I agree with you that Warnock appears to have momentum. And let's face it, he came into this with a lead from election night, right? So Walker's got ground to make up. And I think Julie is right that what hurts the Republicans the most is you can't argue now this is for control. If it was for control, some people who have some misgivings about Herschel Walker would probably be willing to abandon those in order to prevent Democrats from getting control. But now that control is not up, I think that may hurt Republican turnout a little bit.
Mariana, the stakes are lower, but there is a difference between 50 and 51.
There is, and you have actually seen a number of surrogates going out there trying to make that distinction. It is a little bit hard to explain, but Obama really driving home, okay, this is what happens when you have 51 votes. You don't have to listen to Republicans about who you can subpoena. It really does help on committee assignments as well, because Democrats will be able to have more say and literal physical representation in those committees. And then you have someone like Ted Cruz, who's going out there for Warnock saying, hey, I'm sitting on the Judiciary Committee. I don't want more Democrats on there. So it's not necessarily the most interesting subject to talk about, but surrogates are out there trying to say it does matter. 50-50 Senate
Voters are just not going to get it.
No,
I mean,
no.
it's just not
How do you
gonna
spice it
care.
up?
You know, I mean, I get it, and I understand the importance of it. Having been a governor with a Democratic legislature, I understand all that. But voters in general, in a runoff, are going to go.
One of the things they may be getting, you know, Donald Trump in the last 3 weeks, in these between the midterms and the runoff, announces he's running for president, meets with Fuentes, meets with Kanye West Z, you're supposed to call him now, right, or Ye, whatever. Yeah. And then last night comes out for suspending the Constitution. I ask you a version of this question all the time. I don't understand why it's so difficult to come out against someone who's for suspending the Constitution.
Well, obviously, neither do I. And I think, you know, look, this has been the most uninspiring Republican presidential announcement since Fred Thompson. I mean, like, everybody had this anticipation he's going to announce. Nothing has happened since then except bad things for Donald Trump because he is being his post-2020 election untethered self. It should not be hard to say that the 2020 election is over. It should not be hard to say, no, I don't favor a revote. I don't favor the true winner, as he put it, being put into office by some extra constitutional act. this is what kills my party right now, is this conversation this morning. We're not talking about issues that American people care about. You and I are sitting here talking about this. And we as a party need to have this open family argument in the public about whether this is the way we need to go as a party. And, you know, we need to have that argument. We need to have it now.
Chris, you need a backbone to have that conversation. You had a backbone when you condemned what happened during that dinner in Mar-a-Lago. You did it. No one else in your party. It took them a week to get the message that Donald Trump, the standard bearer of the Republican Party, was sitting down with a known anti-Semite and another known anti-Semite. Yeah. And, you know, it took days after you made that courageous statement for others to follow. So, no, without a backbone, Donald Trump is going to continue to pull the strings in the Republican Party, and he's going to continue to be the face of the Republican Party. And only a toxic dictator, a would-be dictator, would say we got to suspend the Constitution.
Mariana,
doesn't make sense.
Not making things easy for Kevin McCarthy either. We just heard Nate Silver on Kevin McCarthy's chances. You cover Congress every single day. How's that playing out right now?
Republicans are really nervous just because they don't know how it's going to play out. And if you ask them, they say anyone who tells you, you know, McCarthy has it or he doesn't know. And there is time for these 5 or so. They won't say, you know, they keep saying we're recruiting someone or, you know, there's someone in the shadows. Well, they have time to be able to find someone, but no one wants to lead a majority of just 4 or 5 votes because it's going to be difficult. And, you know, I've actually been talking to a couple of moderates like Joyce who say it's actually good to see McCarthy trying to convene all of the different factions within the Republican conference because they were also worried seeing him in the minority leaning too far right and, you know, not denouncing some of the voices that, you know, were actually hanging out with Nick Fuentes in the conference themselves. So they really are looking at this as, okay, this is a test for McCarthy, too, to bring all of us together, try and hash it out early. But again, there are just people in the Republican conference who just don't like McCarthy. He could give any concession possible. They just don't like him.
At the same time, if McCarthy is going to clear 218, and I agree, I mean, this idea of you can't beat somebody with nobody is kind of where Republicans are right now. If he crosses 218, he is going to have made so many promises to some of those conservative, really far-right lawmakers around particularly the investigations, that's
and they want the ability to recall him at any moment. You
exactly.
saw Dave Joyce
He's
come
going
out
to have
against
made
that.
so many concessions to them that his ability to do much, to Chris's point, to be able to actually take action on issues, real things that the American public wants, to be able to make that argument going into the 2024 election is going to be just extremely limited
but no one else
by
wants
his
the
own
job.
actions.
Well, listen, there may be some other people who quietly look in the mirror in the morning and see a speaker in that House conference, but no one else is looking in that mirror and seeing a speaker. McCarthy is the leading candidate because, let's face it, to give Kevin some credit, when he took over as the leader, they were in the minority. He won seats in 2020 when no one expected they would, and they won enough seats to get a majority this time. So, you know, nobody else was doing that heavy lifting. I saw the work Kevin McCarthy did across the country. The guy was on an airplane more than he was on his feet. And, you know, people do remember those things. So in the end, they're going to vote for McCarthy. How much he's going to be able to get done is going to be up to 2 things. 1, how well he's able to maneuver inside that room, and 2, what the Democrats do. Because sometimes the opposition can make it easy to unite you. So see what they do and whether they make it hard or easy. And Hakeem Jeffries is going to have some big decisions as a new leader to make. And I think a lot of people in the Democratic side are going to appreciate Nancy Pelosi more than they did. And that's not a knock on Hakeem, but it is that she had a lot of experience dealing with herding those cats. And, you know, it may not be as easy as it looks.
Difficult job,
Well,
no question
come
about
on.
that.
Kevin is a walking salesperson. He's going out, you know, promising committee assignments, promising to investigate. The problem is the Republican caucus has a split personality. You have a huge chunk, the Freedom Caucus. They want to do a lot of oversight, a lot of investigation. They're not looking at passing legislation. They're trying to embarrass the president. Here's what I suspect. Those 7 to 9 members in the House GOP caucus that won in Biden districts that President Biden carried in 2020, they're going to be hell-bent to look for compromises with Democrats. So I think Kevin will have to talk to Hakeem a lot to get some votes.
Donna, take us inside these deliberations. The DNC you were part of to change the primary calendar. South Carolina now proposed to be first, a calendar tailor-made for Joe Biden.
You know, when I walked into our informal dinner and the president, I haven't gotten a letter like this from a president in a long time. He laid out his principles. And you know, George, I might have walked into that room thinking, you know, the calendar should start perhaps in another state. But when the president laid out such an important agenda for us that it was very difficult to counter the president's proposal. So yes, we're going to extend this tradition that we have given to Iowa and New Hampshire for as long as I can recall to additional states.
Just explain to everybody what the first month is now going to look like if this proposal goes through.
Proposal, we are going to grant waivers to allow 5 states to go before the window, which is Super Tuesday, March 5th. 20 states applied, 17 were under consideration, 5 states. That includes February 3rd, starting the great state of South Carolina, followed by the next Tuesday with Nevada and New Hampshire, and then followed by Michigan and then Georgia. So 4 out of the 5 states are battleground states, and I do believe that this tradition that allows voters to look under the hood, check the tires of these candidates. I think the voters in South Carolina will do a remarkable job.
If it goes through, Chris, it could create some difficult decisions for Republicans as well.
I don't think the Republicans are going to change, George. I haven't heard anybody saying in the aftermath of what the DNC has proposed that, oh, yeah, either we're in a tough spot or we're going to change. I think you're going to see the traditional calendar. And let's face it, we've heard from the 2 United States senators from New Hampshire that they are going to do everything they can to make sure that New Hampshire is first. And they're going to do whatever they need to do to move that date and do whatever.
And it's state law.
That's right. It is state law that they have to be first. And if you go to New Hampshire, as we all have at one time or another, it is part of like your first grade education. We're first. So I think Republicans are probably going to stay right with the calendar the way it's been with, you know, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina, and then everybody else coming up behind in Super Tuesday. I don't see the Republicans changing.
Look, the Republicans are going to have a leadership fight. My pillow guy is going to run against Ms. McDaniel. So whatever is going on in the Republican Party, we don't know because you guys are still trying to sort it out.
I know that
you've ordered another autopsy.
I know that on Sundays you like to do a little betting, Donna. Do yourself a favor. No matter what the odds are, don't bet on the My Pillow guy. Okay, not going to happen.
Mariana, you know, during the summer and fall, we saw a lot of Democrats reluctant to come out and endorse Joe Biden running for president in 2024. Hakeem Jeffries was about as forthright as you could possibly be.
Yeah. And, you know, right before the election, one of the questions we had was the assumption was Democrats were going to lose big in Congress. And there were already a lot of Democrats privately saying, man, if that happens, I mean, it is in part because of Biden's fault. Complete 180, right? Because Democrats were able to hold on, especially in these swing seats. The opposite is true. That doesn't mean that there aren't people who are calling for new leadership. You have heard that, and we just saw that demonstrated with House Democrats once Pelosi stepped down. She knew that there were not enough votes for her to stay on. However, Democrats are, just like Jeffrey said, backing Biden, saying, you know what? His agenda, we helped pass. It helped us win when we were talking about it in these swing districts. And that's what we need to continue to run on to maybe win back the majority.
And this new calendar, the most solid indication yet that he wants to run. He could still change his mind later.
He absolutely could still change his mind, but he is laying the groundwork for a run. And I think in some ways, you know, the story of the Biden presidency is becoming kind of exceeding low expectations. He did it in the 2020 election. He's actually done it over the last 2 years with what he's been able to get through Congress. And then certainly, I think, coming out of these midterms where Democrats did far better than expected. And I again, think he's laying that groundwork for another run.
That's all we have time for right now. Thank you all very much. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.